You're in a really crucial conversation, maybe a high-stakes presentation or a critical meeting with stakeholders, or even just trying to explain something complex to your own team, and bam, suddenly you feel like the rug's been pulled out from under you. A curveball question hits, you kind of stumble, and your whole message just vanishes. In today's world, everything's so fast, so media-driven, almost every big interaction feels like a high-stakes interview. It's not just facing reporters, It's those crucial internal talks, trying to influence clients, leading your team. These aren't just moments you have to survive. They're actually high-stakes opportunities where you can really shine. And that's exactly why today we're doing a deep dive into mastering strategic communication. We want to give you some really proven, powerful techniques, tools to navigate these critical moments so you can deliver your message with absolute clarity, real confidence, and total control. We've been looking at some great sources, professional development stuff, communication skills training.
Specifically drawing from The Art of the Interview, Mastering Strategic Communication. And our mission for you, listening right now, is to give you a bit of a shortcut. A way to project that confidence, that credibility, so your voice really carries authority and, purpose. Okay, let's unpack this. Just imagine walking into any challenging dialogue, even when you're feeling the pressure, and having the exact tools to guide that conversation and leave your audience remembering exactly what you want them to. That's the power we're aiming for today.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating, I think, is that these aren't just tricks, little tactics to get through something. It's more fundamental than that. It's about shifting how you actually approach communication itself, moving from just being reactive, caught off guard, to actively, deliberately shaping your own narrative. And these principles, they go way beyond formal media interviews. They apply to pretty much any high-stakes interaction where you need your message to land perfectly with real impact.
Absolutely. And the great thing is, once you kind of grasp the psychology behind it, these techniques start to feel more intuitive. So picture this. You're in that high-stakes conversation, and a question hits you, one that tries to pull you completely off your message. How do you handle that? How do you gracefully acknowledge it, but without losing control of your agenda? Well, that's where our first secret weapon comes in, the bridge and flag technique. Let's start with the bridge. What exactly is it? Think of it like a verbal redirect. It's a transition you craft strategically. It lets you acknowledge the question you were asked, and that's super important, right? It shows you're listening, builds rapport, but then it immediately, smoothly pivots the conversation back towards your core message, or, the information you actually want to get across.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the clever part. It respects the question, but it also instantly takes back control of the narrative, so you don't get derailed. Like, say you're asked, why did your team miss the deadline on that project?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of getting stuck defending yourself.
Right, getting defensive.
Yeah, a bridge lets you reframe. Our source suggests something like, we face some unexpected challenges, definitely. But what's most important to remember now is how we've adapted our process to make sure future deadlines are met. Say, it acknowledges the challenges, but boom, redirects straight to adaptation and future solutions.
It's subtle.
It really is. It's not just being polite. It's actually using a kind of cognitive bias by briefly validating the negative, then immediately pivoting to the positive. You sort of anchor the listener's mind on your message. That becomes the lasting impression. It's like mental judo, guiding their focus where you want it.
That's a really critical distinction you made there. The art isn't just knowing a phrase to say. It's about genuinely listening before you bridge. Because look, a badly done bridge, it can sound totally evasive or dismissive.
Oh, absolutely.
The key is to truly acknowledge the question, even if it's brief, before you smoothly guide things back. You don't want to alienate the person asking, right? It's respecting their question while strategically making sure your core message doesn't get lost in the shuffle. Of course, those common bridging phrases are useful starting points. Things like, that's a good point, and what's also important to consider is, or maybe, while that's one perspective, what I'd like to highlight is, I don't have all the specific details on that right now, but what I can tell you is they all act like that verbal redirect, just gently taking the conversation where you want it, instead of where the questioner might be trying to lead you.
Exactly. Okay, so you've successfully bridged. You've pivoted back to your core message. Now, how do you make absolutely sure that message sticks, that it lands? That's where the flag comes in. A flag is basically a verbal cue. It explicitly signals, hey, this part is important.
Mm-hmm. Pay attention.
Yeah. Think of like taking a big, bright highlighter to your key takeaway for the listener. It makes sure they not only pay attention right then, but crucially, they remember what you just said. It taps into that recency effect.
Yeah.
How people tend to remember the last thing they heard best.
Precisely. And those flagging phrases are pretty straightforward. Things like, the bottom line is, or here's the key takeaway. Or maybe, what's most important to remember is, they're incredibly effective.
They really cut through.
They do. They grab attention, make sure the audience registers the core of your statement. And if we connect this back to the bigger picture, bridging and flagging together, they really do transform these interactions. They stop being just reactive exchanges and become purposeful communication opportunities. You're ensuring your core message lands, even if the question wasn't directly about it initially. So the process for you, the listener, is quite clear. First, really listen. Acknowledge the question properly. Then, use a bridging phrase to redirect smoothly. Deliver your key message, the thing you want them to hear. And finally, hammer it home with a flag. This kind of structured approach, it gives you real command over the flow and the content. Make sure your points stick.
That's such a vital point. Because let's face it, not every question you get is going to be easy. Some questions are tough, challenging, sometimes even hostile. That's just reality in high-stakes situations.
Absolutely.
The goal isn't some magic trick to avoid them that's usually impossible anyway. It's about how you handle them, with control, with composure, and crucially, maintaining your credibility without getting defensive. Okay, so our sources point to a few really powerful techniques for this. The first one is acknowledge and pivot. This basically means you show some empathy for the concern or the question being raised. You show you've heard it, you understand it, but then you transition smoothly towards what really matters, towards your core message.
Right.
It validates the other person's perspective, which is good, but it stops you getting stuck in a negative frame. For example, if someone hits you with, why did your team ignore the early warning signs? You could respond with something like, I understand why that's being asked. That's a fair point.
Good.
However, what's important now is that we've since implemented a new monitoring system to prevent future issues. See, you acknowledge the past issue, understand why asked, but immediately pivot to future solutions. New system, prevent future issues, shows action, shows growth.
This technique really blends emotional intelligence with strategic communication, doesn't it?
It does.
You're sort of diffusing potential tension by validating their concern, but then you immediately shift the focus away from blame or dwelling on the past and towards proactive steps, solutions. It's a really powerful way to manage how people perceive the situation. Now, there are other phrases you can internalize, right? Things for you, the listener, to practice. I understand why you ask that, however. Or, that's a fair question, and what's important to note is even just, I hear your concern, and here's what we're focused on now. They all serve that same dual purpose. Show empathy, then redirect.
Okay, then there's the positive reframe. This isn't about, pretending bad things didn't happen.
No, it's not spin in that sense.
Right. It's about consciously choosing how you present the reality.
Yeah.
It means instead of just defending your position, you proactively show growth. You turn challenges into opportunities to highlight progress or learning, or maybe your organization's core values. You take a narrative that feels negative and you shift the frame. Make it about constructive action, positive outcomes. So if someone asks aggressively, isn't this just damage control after what happened? You can reframe it. Maybe say, actually, we see it as a really significant chance to rebuild trust and to demonstrate our unwavering commitment to transparency and accountability. You're not denying there was an issue, but you're shifting the whole perspective from defensive reaction to proactive opportunity.
And that's where you really show leadership, show vision. You're not just responding to a negative point, you're actively transforming it.
Yeah.
This is especially useful if your organization has faced a setback. It lets you highlight resilience, a forward-looking perspective. It's very powerful. And you can use phrases like, we actually see this as an opportunity to, or this challenge has genuinely helped us improve by ho. Or maybe, rather than seeing it as just a setback, it's been a critical learning moment for us. And it's really strengthened our resolve to, something like that. It moves the audience away from dwelling on the problem and gets them seeing the solution, the positive evolution.
Okay, now the third technique for handling those tough questions. This one is absolutely vital. Avoid repeating negative language. Seriously, this is crucial.
So important.
Our brains, they're just incredibly susceptible to suggestion, aren't they? If you repeat negative language, even when you're denying it, you just amplify it. You reinforce that negative frame in people's minds. Like if someone says your project was a failed product and you reply, it's not a failed product, guess what? You've just repeated failed product. You might have actually solidified that idea for them.
It's like the classic, don't think of a pink elephant.
Exactly. What's the first thing you picture?
The pink elephant, yeah, it's a perfect analogy. The cognitive science is pretty clear on this. When you negate something, the brain often still processes the core concept first. So yeah, you're inadvertently giving power to that negative narrative instead of actively shaping a positive one. Your word choice here is just, it's such a powerful tool.
So what do you do instead?
Well, the advice from the source is clear. Completely bypass the negative framing. Don't even engage with it on its own terms. So instead of it's not a failed product, you'd strategically pivot and say something like, actually, it's a product that's evolving based on extensive user feedback, and it's already showing some really promising results in early trials.
Ah, I see. You just sidestep the negative term completely.
Completely. Offer a constructive, forward-looking alternative instead. And look, this isn't about being dishonest. It's about consciously choosing language. Language that moves the conversation forward constructively, aligning with your message, your values.
That's such a powerful distinction.
Yeah.
And yeah, it definitely takes practice to kind of rewire how you instinctively respond sometimes. Okay, so we've talked about steering the conversation, handling tough questions, but what about those moments, it may happen, right, when you simply cannot, or maybe should not, answer a question directly?
Yeah, big awkward ones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Our sources call this the art of the graceful decline. And this isn't a sign of weakness at all. Actually, it's a sophisticated move. It's an opportunity to protect your credibility, maintain control, and really demonstrate professionalism.
Knowing when and how to decline answering is vital for a few key reasons. First, like you said, credibility. It preserves trust. If you offer information you're not sure about, or if you just speculate, well, that's a fast way to undermine yourself.
Definitely.
Second, it helps you maintain control, keeps the focus where you want it, on your message, stops you getting pulled into areas that are irrelevant or sensitive or maybe premature. And third, yeah, it just shows professionalism. You're setting clear, respectful boundaries.
Yeah.
It communicates that you're considered, you're responsible, not just blurting things out.
Exactly. So how do you actually do this gracefully? The first technique is pretty straightforward. Just be clear, respectful, and honest, without sounding evasive.
Tricky balance sometimes.
It is. The goal is to avoid looking like you're dodging, but you still need to hold your ground. If you're genuinely not the right person or the information isn't public yet, it's okay to say that. You could use phrases like, I'm probably not the best person to speak on that particular point. Or that's actually proprietary information at this stage, but what I can tell you is, or maybe we're still gathering data on that and we'll definitely share more once it's fully verified. Even something polite and direct, like, I can't speak to that directly right now, but here's what I can say about a related topic. That can work really well. Okay, the second technique, even when you are declining, is to redirect with value. This is where you still manage to add something genuinely useful to the conversation.
Even though you haven't answered the direct question.
Exactly. You find relevant, shareable information that supports your main message or shows your organization's values in action. For instance, say you're asked, can you confirm the specific details of the internal investigation into that security breach? And maybe that information is confidential. You could say, well, the specifics are confidential at this stage, but what I absolutely can tell you is that we're taking this matter with the utmost seriousness. We're cooperating fully with authorities, and our number one priority remains the security of our customer data. Reassuring. Or you could pivot to related positive action. Look, I can't discuss the specifics of that particular investigation, but I can share that we've just launched new, enhanced measures to increase transparency and data protection right across all our departments.
Yeah.
So you see, you're not answering the direct question, but you're still giving useful, relevant info. Info that supports your overall message and hopefully builds some confidence.
That's a really excellent example. Offering substance without breaching confidentiality or, crucially, speculating. It respects the boundaries, but it still engages the listener with something meaningful. The real art there is being able to quickly identify what you can say that's helpful, that aligns with your goals, rather than just getting stuck on what you cannot say.
And that leads perfectly to the final point here. Under absolutely no circumstances should you avoid speculation.
Oh, this is a killer.
It really is. It's just such a fast path to eroding your credibility. Never guess. Never offer unverified information. Don't make assumptions. Because doing that just undermines trust so quickly, and you risk spreading misinformation, which is terrible.
Huge risk.
If you're not sure, just don't invent an answer or try to predict an outcome. So instead of saying, well, I think what's happening is, and I reckon it'll probably lead to X, Our sources strongly advise you say something much more grounded, like, let's wait for the official findings before we comment further. We're committed to being transparent with updates as soon as we have verified information.
Professional, honest.
Yep.
Exactly. Professional, honest, and it rigorously protects your reputation.
This raises an important question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How often do we feel that pressure, that almost irresistible urge to fill a silence with an answer, any answer, even if it's unverified?
It's a strong pull.
It's a really common human tendency, I think. But resisting that urge, that's a hallmark of truly masterful communication. Protecting your credibility is just paramount. And sometimes, that means knowing precisely when not to speak on a particular point. It's actually a sign of strength, not weakness, to say you don't have the information or you can't share it yet, especially if you then follow it up by redirecting with value, like we just talked about.
That's a really profound takeaway, isn't it? The power of purposeful silence and strategic honesty. So as we start to wrap up this deep dive, let's just quickly recap the powerful strategies we've unpacked today. We kicked off with that foundational bridge and flag technique, designed to help you steer conversations gracefully, keep your core message front and center, using those subtle psychological anchors.
Then we moved into handling tough questions, arming you with strategies like acknowledge and pivot, the positive reframe, and that critical understanding of why you must avoid repeating negative language. Remember the pink elephant.
Can't unsee it now.
Right? And finally, we explore the art of the graceful decline, showing you how to maintain control and credibility even when you can't or shouldn't answer directly, by being clear, redirecting with value, and absolutely avoiding speculation. And remember, mastering these high-stakes conversations, it isn't about being some kind of robot achieving perfection. It's about intelligent control and having a clear purpose. So what does all this actually mean for you, the listener, in your day-to-day life? Well, whether you're presenting in a board meeting or negotiating with a really key client, or maybe just navigating a sensitive conversation with a team member, these skills help ensure that your message isn't just heard. It needs to be deeply understood, genuinely remembered, and most importantly, trusted.
Yeah.
These techniques are designed to help your voice cut through all the noise and make a real, lasting impact.
Ultimately, effective communication, especially when the stakes are high, it really boils down to ensuring your voice carries authority and purpose. By consistently practicing these techniques, the bridging and flagging, mastering tough questions with reframing and careful language, and knowing when and how to gracefully decline, you gain significant control over the narrative.
That's the key, control.
It is. You get to proactively shape the story around your values, your goals. It's about making sure that what your audience takes away, what they really remember, is the strength and the clarity of your message, not the potential trap hidden in some challenging question.
That's incredibly powerful when you think about it. Okay, so here's something to mull over. Think about the last really challenging conversation you had. Maybe one where you felt a bit, on the back foot.
We've all had them.
Definitely. How might applying just one of these techniques, maybe a well-placed bridge or a really clear flag, or perhaps a confident, graceful decline, how might that have changed the outcome for you? The next time you feel that pressure building, just remember, you actually have strategic tools now, tools to guide the dialogue and make sure your message not only counts, but truly resonates. Maybe start small, practice one principle this week, and just watch how your communication impact starts to grow.